So good afternoon. Today is the last Tuesday of the month for July for our Offsite Construction Series. We're always very excited about this conversation because we are bringing a collective audience to educate more people about what really is offsite construction. Is it volumetric? Is it modular? Is it panelization? Yes, actually it's all of those, so it's kind of exciting. Today, we have a very exciting guest that is going to be joining us. But before we introduce Tim Seims, we're going to kind of walk through and appreciate our partners in our Offsite Construction Series. I'm Audrey. I'm with Modular Sure Site. My company is a general contracting company for offsite construction along with set and crane services. And one of our first partners is Mountain View Window and Door. So I am going to introduce Matt McMullen. Please take it away, Matt.
Yeah, thanks, Audrey. Pleased to help sponsor this great series. And if any architects, developers, or contractors out there have any window, interior, or exterior door needs, please contact us. We'd love to work with you. We specialize in modular and stick built as well.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate that. Our next partner is Greg KROM with 303 Development. We have done a series of projects with Greg and his company. He is a general contractor. They are traditional and they have actually sited into offsite construction and volumetric buildings. So it's very exciting to have Greg and his team with us today. Our newest player on our mix of partners is Urban Air Living, and I'm going to introduce the president, which is Lydia. Lydia, please tell us a little bit more about Urban Air Living.
Thanks, Audrey. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Lydia Hatton, and Urban Air is based in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and we are bringing our designs across the country for accessory dwelling units. We have created designs from 399 square feet all the way up to 1,200. We also manufacture the configurable interior components. We have patents on movable wall and our different types of applications of that wall. So we are able to create what we call a room on demand. We like to say we can make 500 square feet live like 800. And we're really bringing a well-designed quality space out into the market, and we are also making our components available to those who would like to use them in their own builds as well. Thanks for the opportunity, and I look forward to today's conversation.
Thanks, Lydia. And just for all of those out there that may not know what an ADU or an accessory dwelling unit is, sometimes they're called coach houses or granny flats. So they definitely serve a purpose, and we're seeing the marketplace change, including some higher density opportunities with this product. So thanks for being here, Lydia. We're so excited about that. Our next partner, amazing partner, as I like to call it, is the Art of Construction, and I'm going to let Scott take that away.
Thanks, Audrey. Hello, everyone. I'm the executive producer of Art of Construction. We're a podcast about the world of construction, as well as an entire marketing, communication, and sales strategy media platform. We have an entire podcast series with Audrey we've done in the past called System Built Lifestyle. You can go to theartofconstruction.net and check us out. We're nearing 200 episodes and 400,000 listens, and are really proud to be a part of making this series happen and being a part of these amazing conversations. And we're looking forward to today's presentation.
Yes, and it's quite an audience that they have at the Art of Construction. It's super interesting conversations that they have, and it's always good if you're getting into construction or actually thinking about it. This would be the first place to start uploading some of those videos and listening to the podcast to get yourself versed into the industry. So thank you, Scott.
Thanks, Audrey.
So our amazing guests, Tim and I actually met at the International Builder Show this year in Las Vegas. It was really exciting because I knew nothing about exterior wall systems and cladding and fibre board and all these other opportunities. And Nichiha actually has these amazing products with this fiber cement rainscreen cladding system and these clip systems, which he's going to articulate. But the great thing about Tim Seims is that he's probably one of the most humble people I've met in the industry. He is kind of like this industry leader, as I like to say, because he really has studied not only traditional, but also offsite construction, and how he has bridged the gap with these products is just amazing. So thank you for being here. We're truly excited about it. And we're excited about having you, Tim. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself briefly and give an overview of the company, but I would love for you to take it away.
Yeah, I will. Why don't I go ahead and share screen, if that's all right, and then
Sure.
I'll jump into it. So I love the series you're doing, Audrey, and that you're all working on as a team, because there's so much, I think, perhaps misconception about offsite construction, system built, modular. What do all these terms mean? And I'm really glad you brought that together in kind of one holistic statement at the beginning. I work at Nichiha. My name is Tim, and I manage the offsite modular segment. In Japan, it really is called system built, like a literal translation from Japanese. And so that term's used here in the United States too, but it really encompasses that whole segment of the marketplace, whether it's single family, multifamily, commercial, standalone retail, standalone quick serve restaurant. So, and we've done all of that. And in Japan, we have about a 50% market share, just under that, in total cladding. And so what that's allowed us to do is to understand the marketplace from a very deep market penetration standpoint. So we've kind of pretty much done everything, but Japanese standards aren't the same as US standards. And so we didn't know what would be portable when we started talking about offsite construction. So that was my main job, is to jump in, see what transfers into this marketplace, North and South America, and what doesn't, and what gaps need to be filled. And what I'm finding is that pretty much everyone has a different need. I was talking with one provider today, one factory provider, and they have a different need than someone I talked to yesterday. And so what we're just trying to do is find out what people's needs are. We're very flexible and jumping in and seeing what solutions can be offered, even if it's not a Nichiha solution. So that's mainly what my job is. And I also manage the single family segment for whether it's site built or offsite. So that's my responsibility. I've been at Nichiha 11 years. Before that, I was at James Hardie for 5 years, and have learned and seen a lot of different strategies along the way, and really appreciate things like this, where we get to bring people from the industry together to talk and think about the problems that folks are facing and solve for those problems, and then not solve for the problems people aren't having.
And of course, it's really exciting too that you're in your treehouse. And I forgot to mention that you also have this amazing podcast called Build Perspectives. And I was on that podcast, and it was super fun. So that's another area that people can reach out and start knowing a little bit more about you too, Tim. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was really fun having you on that. I think we've had some really cool guests, and again, it's about broadening perspectives in the industry. Yep. And so that it can be less about competition and more about collaboration. So the title of if it's all right for me to move into the presentation, the title of our talk today is Impacting Modular Building Design Through Exterior Cladding Materials Without Crushing the Schedule, Budget, or Soul. And I think that that's been a tough one for folks, especially when it comes to cladding. So I'll share this image, and I really like this. It's not this is actually from a video game, but it's hard to find images of this castle, but it's called the One Night Castle. It's the Sonomata Ichiya Castle. And it was the first real modular or panelized project recorded in history. And it was a castle and fortitude that was built in one night to defend a certain part of the land, where one governor was pitting against another governor. So politics notwithstanding, the history of prefab this is an early example of that. And it was really an example of defensibility. So in my backyard, literally, I have KB Homes down the street. I have Pulte, and then down the street from them is Toll Brothers. And they're all trying, it's sort of an arms race to get these homes built, because first to market is the first to win. And so, but none of them are using offsite construction with the exception of trusses. And so it's pretty interesting that that has not been employed, but it is a great strategy for defensibility. So we'll talk a little bit about that today. A lot of folks have seen a sold Sears ad. This is kind of the other end of the spectrum. It wasn't about defensibility, but it was about the DIY ability to build your own house through a barn raising effort. And so there's still thousands of these homes that are around. And basically it was delivered on a horse and carriage, a pre-cut, windows pre-cut, and everything was ready to build, and the neighbors would get together and build them. And but what's interesting is you see that it doesn't include the price of brick or plaster or anything like that. Why is that? Well, those things are really hard to ship on the wall, right? Especially in pre-cut, prefab condition, let alone on mods, which wasn't a story at the time, but now it is. And so how do you handle the cladding? How do you handle the plaster? How do you handle all these different aesthetics that folks want in a prefab environment? So we're going to talk about that today. Bill Ayler gave a presentation in Scottsdale I guess almost a year ago now. And he said it's still a ways away to do some of the rainscreen and finish elements in a factory. And that's very true. Those things are difficult. They're a little bit of a bug in the ointment when it comes to the offsite, in general, the offsite story and construction technology. So yeah, I guess it was 2019. So it doesn't seem that long ago, but in dog years that we're living in COVID now, it's a long time. So anyhow, enter this system. So this is a system we've been using since the mid-70s in Japan. It is basically a shiplapped edge panel product. And those shiplaps fit into a clip system. That clip is the attachment to the wall. So it's a hidden fastener attachment, but it's also the standoff for a drain and back ventilated rain screen system. So the importance of that is, from a building science standpoint, is pretty powerful. And folks should be looking at rain screen because it's so readily available now in terms of the technology, whether it's strapping or whether it's a system like this, or even a much more robust system. And the reason why is you get that ventilation, of course, and you get the drainage behind the siding. And so those things don't happen in the wall, along with the condensation is happening on the WRB and not in the wall, which is particularly important where you have big temperature swings and differences in temperature from the interior to the exterior. That's the science of it. But the beauty of the system isn't just the science, it's also a platform for all these looks, wood, plaster, architectural concrete, high gloss finished, brick, stone, all those things. So it's sort of like software to us, it's like if you're building a software platform and then you have all these other extrapolations or extensions of that. So that clip system is our platform, and then we can pretty much do all these different kind of panels on top of that. So it's literally a modular cladding system. So, but in a little bit different vein than the context we're talking about, offsite modular today. So basically, it's a one-pass install. It's a built-in rain screen hidden fastener, and I think that's super important to keep in mind because we're all about making things simpler. And I think what I've seen since I started this, over the last, 3 years, there's been so much fragmentation, even as we're trying to introduce and adopt technologies, construction tech and systems that will make things easier. It seems like over the last 3 years, we've sort of had this ballooning and fragmentation. So many different providers, so many different design services. Everyone's kind of doing things a little different. But the fortunate thing is the blister's been raised. The challenge has been accepted. Like, how can we make our industry better, faster, more sustainable in terms of the how buildings, how long they last. So that is just part of the story. We have the affordable housing story that's so important, the medical building and facility story that's so important. So this is what we wanted to do, was offer a really simple system. So the challenge, one of the big challenges in the cladding side of the business, cladding, facades, siding, whatever you want to call it, as it also is very fragmented. There's a lot of different suppliers. Everyone's got a different price. There's 7 different go-to-market strategies, and none of them favor the end user. So what we're trying to do is simplify that, compress that, and get as close to the end user, the developer, the homeowner, whoever's the last person to touch that siding. We're trying to get closer and closer to them, whether it's offsite or site built. So, you know, some suppliers and people in the middle of that channel that don't want to be part of the solution, unfortunately, over time, those folks get cut out. It's just natural selection. And so folks that want to help us solve these problems, then we all do it together and things can happen a lot faster. But not everyone wants to be part of that. So we're working with the ones who do. So to give you an example, in Japan, this is a Sekisui house. You can see a piece of our cladding on the line there. They had a hard time getting the brokerage houses and agencies in Japan to set up the factories. So they were like, well, I guess we're the developer, we're the builder, we're going to set up our own factory. And that's the best, quickest way to get penetration with offsite construction methodologies. In any part of the world, the most successful ones are where the developer has set up their own operation. And that's essentially what's happened here. And so in Japan, they've become the largest builder, or one of the largest builders, through those efforts. And a lot of that has to do with that moat, that defensibility they built through construction technology. And now they own bought Woodside Homes here in the US. So you can expect that to be a big part of that story in the news. So is it easy to clad an exterior and offsite and transport it and lift it into place? No, but it can be done. So, but what it takes is folks, you know, the manufacturer, technical folks, the architect, the owner, all the trades in between, to be talking about these things and rolling up their sleeves together, because every project and it seems like every project's a little different, and everyone's got a little different strategy of how they're going to go to market with it. So I think it's really important if there's one takeaway I'd like folks to, that are watching and listening or seeing the recording later, is that, you know, we, like a lot of other smart folks, are trying to roll up our sleeves and help people solve for the problems they're facing in the segment they're building in, whether it's multifamily, mixed use, education, or single family plats. You can see why it's so important to have those partnerships. Otherwise, you don't end up with a product like what you're seeing in this picture. You could easily end up with a really bad modular project if people aren't communicating. So that's the main message. Another thing about sustainability and cladding and having an in-house system and the dedication and commitment to this strategy is, you see in this picture, these are in the area where in 2011, there was a 9.0 earthquake. And Sekisui House went back to 176,000 homes and reviewed each one of them in that area. And why did they not one had structural damage? Not only were there none that were destroyed, while others were, none of them had structural damage. So why? They use system built, in-house design, very tight construction methods, and they were building these homes to last a long, long time. So those homeowners just had minor repairs, and that wasn't the case for folks around them. But these were not. Their methodology is more of a post and beam and connectors, and all those things being prefabbed off-site, but it's still a system-built technology, and folks should learn from that. So now let's talk about the U.S. I'm going to walk through some use cases for modular. The most modular projects we've done, or off-site prefab projects, have been hospitality. Now there's still a big pipeline of hospitality, because there is and when you talk to economists, there's still a lot of pent-up travel for business and personal and pleasure travel and leisure for the next 10 to 20 years. That pipeline may have been stalled for a little bit with COVID, but most still plan to build these projects. So folks that, brands and builders and architects and developers that have invested in modular technology are going to be able to launch their projects much faster. And that'll be the case with this. This one's actually in process in San Jose, but you can get, it's a pretty easy heads and beds faster story for a competitive situation like this. And you can expect to see that pent-up demand for any kind of building to be answered well with an offsite strategy, and others might be kind of left behind. So that's the project. This is not cladded. They're doing the plaster and the Nichiha after the fact. But just because it's a site installation doesn't mean it doesn't have unique challenges to building modular. The cladding is definitely affected in the exterior design by that. And when you have modules that don't line up great, then you need a system that will manage these and mitigate these situations better than others. And so when you have a floating wall system that has the standoff clip system, you can gobble up some of these differentials in that cladding install, where you normally would have to go back and do a bunch of furring and deal with the challenges a more traditional way. So that's one way that, even though it's a site installation of the cladding, that you can utilize this technology, this rainscreen clip system, to manage these challenges. But that's not the only challenge out there. This is a big one, mate lines and plate lines. If you've been doing this for a while, you know that to have things line up great all the time, it's just not a reality. And so you want to be able to have a way to answer these problems. So we love working with folks and solving for this. So this is another case. This is another set that we were present at, and we went through the technical. We had our technical team out there to go through with the installer all these different transitions. Again, a site installation of the cladding, but with unique challenges that come with volumetric modules. Mostly, most of them most of the builders are very intentional on things lining up, but it doesn't always work out that way. So how do we manage all those mate and plate transitions and transitions to other materials? So this is a really fun challenge to work on, and they're great big projects. That's great. We love it. Another big project. Now this is a podium, a type 1B construction concrete podium. And what they were doing, building this 1,000-room resort called Kalahari. It'll be done here shortly, the landscaping for photography, which I don't have any new photography probably till September, October. But this was the concept. And originally, it was going to be an EIFS and plaster scenario. And then they were looking at different options. How can they sort of speed up the process of the construction by building something in tandem off-site? And so they looked at a bunch of different systems. The light gauge steel, well, the drywaller, who has then got the light gauge steel contract, said, well, why don't I look at doing the insulation? Why don't we build we'll put on the gyp sheathing, we'll do the installation, and then we'll lift it into place, and then we'll, you know, put the windows in the cladding, do the plaster and all that stuff. And then after they got talking about it, and again, rolling up their sleeves, collaborating, you know, getting us involved, we were all, you know, the light gauge steel contractor said, well, I wonder if I could do the WRB and the cladding and the windows. So anyhow, this is one of the outcomes, was working on this rendering with them. So this is an on-site prefab project. So you don't see a lot of these in this country, but in Northern Europe and in Japan, you'll often see an on-site prefab project where they're doing system-built construction. In this case, they got some and made some, fabricated their own truss table type designs, and they just started framing away and gyp sheathing, WRB, and this was on site, so you can see the building in the background there. So they have all these tables set up, and they can do all the foam accents and the cladding and the windows. You can see the workers. They're not working at height. They're all working basically just off the ground. So it's a safer environment. So we worked on the details with them. They actually used a different slab edge flashing detail, but it's a gasketed panel insert, basically light gauge steel fitting between the red iron structural columns. And so it was an on-site prefab. They just had to crane them into place, and it went very, very, very fast. So the same length of time was taken as if in overall man hours or person hours. But the difference is they were doing a lot of this in tandem with other trades on the building. So what happened is they were able to open much sooner, and they saved over $1 million in scaffolding, over $1 million in scaffolding, and about 9 weeks in construction. So that's huge. It's huge. And that's just some of the creative things you want to be able to do. So you can see this is how they were lifting them up, craning them into place, and then they had an attachment on the inside. And so I had a crew there, a bunch of riders and things. We did a little tour of this project as a case study. But it's just one example of many different ways to approach that. So you can achieve these different looks, and pretty much any project can be done that way, especially if it's a podium type project. So these are just some examples of what can be accomplished. Not all of these are modular, but they pretty much could be. And I don't know why they don't do it, with the exception of just, you know, maybe fear or just lack of awareness. But that's why we do these webinars like this and podcasts and events and so forth, so that we can raise that awareness and lower those fears. So all of these are Nichiha cladding products to look like metal cladding or wood or architectural concrete or brick, whatever the case may be, but still all on that same essentially floating wall rain screen system. So you can get these different looks that traditionally would be very heavy products or wet scopes of work and completely ditch. When you look at this, architectural concrete is a wet scope of work, right? So that's almost an impossibility to do in a prefabricated build. If this were real limestone, the scope of work is intensive, and it's another wet scope of work. You couldn't do that with regular large format split face limestone, but you could do it with this 3/4 inch panel that mounts with a clip. And that's exactly what it is. So here's another example. We do a lot of interiors. This is one of our most popular interior products. Instead of doing pouring a 30,000 foot fire or $30,000 fireplace, you could do a $2,000, buy $2,000 in panels and install them right over the studs, and not have that mess and permit and all the stuff that goes with architectural concrete. So that goes for brick too. Another wet scope of work you can totally avoid. So it kind of opens it opens the options for folks, for architects, for designers, for engineers, for building envelope designers and engineers to have more design flexibility with some of these more traditionally wet scopes of work. So I just give you, so there's some more use cases here. So that was commercial and multifamily. This is a single family residence. A lot of you guys have had and heard about Brian Gaudio's team at Module and their living lab there in Pittsburgh. So here was the concept. Then we got the brief and got to work with Brian and his team. That was such a pleasure to work with people that are forward looking and trying to change things and make things better for homeowners, for the contractors and so forth. So we're really fortunate to be able to do that with them. And so this was the concept, and really what they're looking at is building these homes where the roof could be lifted off and they could add a second story easily, or add something on the side in these modules, hence the brand name. So for this expandable living concept. And now they're on to their next project, which looks really cool. If you're not following modulehousing.com or them on LinkedIn and their progress, you totally should, because they're working on some really cool stuff. So here was the outcome. This is a rainscreen cladding system vertically. The installer was there for about 3 days. This was not installed off-site, although it could have been. It just didn't line up with the decision-making time frame. And so we got an installer there from Louisville, and he and his folks did the installation pretty quickly. But that was kind of, it's just an example of a prototype build of this same concept we've been talking about.
And
building off-site to save time.
Tim, this is like super exciting, because I think the thing that this offers is if you can see all the different levels of color and the wood and by the doorway. My question is there like a frame system that goes around it? Because it looks like there's like silver that goes around the meeting lines or the mate lines. Is that kind of how it works, or is that another piece of siding?
Well, that's actually a metal trim, and that was an architectural detail. It wasn't absolutely necessary to have that, but it was architectural detail to line up with that mullion between the transom glass and the main picture window.
Yeah.
And but that's not necessary. There are metal trims around the edges for the corners and so forth, and different flashings. But yeah, it's a good question.
It's so unique. I love it. And I love that you can give some character and some uniqueness to modular, because everybody says modular looks like a mobile home. And now we're seeing that it's completely the farthest thing from that. And I think your exteriors really help define that. So just beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah, thanks. I wish I could take credit for it. I didn't invent it, but I sure love talking about it. Thank you. So this is a concept by Acri Designs. They are Southern California, designed for Southern California, but they ended up doing this in Cannon Beach. This was a modular build, an offsite installation, and you can see how good it looked. So single family, we don't really have, we have a 2-week lead time and no minimum. So it matters not to us if it's commercial, hospitality, quick serve, restaurant, retail, or single family. So here's a concept for a project in Benicia, California by Homa. Ted Homa is a Japanese builder who is now building in the Bay Area and Portland. And so this was their concept, and they came to us like, what could we do? So here was the outcome. So you can see there's the 1/2-inch smooth plank that we make that is not mounted on a rain screen. It's a normal like lap siding, but it's a 1/2-inch thick. And then you can see our wood, vintage wood, that mounts with the clip system on the inset. And then of course the back is a very similar design. And so most of what I'm seeing now is a lot of folks are doing these prototypes. Now prototypes have been so popular in other industries, but in the building industry, people don't go dismantle a house after a couple of years or 5 years or 10 years and break it apart and find what was wasn't working and what was working, and then rebuild it and do prototyping. Very common in Japan amongst the big builders to do prototyping. And that's very similar to what Module and Homa and some of these builders are doing. Woodside is doing 2 more prototypes in Summerlin, Nevada. And very, very good way to go about this. It's always part of this bigger picture. So this is where Homa is going. These communities built with this modular design. So not only you get the escape velocity in terms of the time frame, but you answer that modern aesthetic, that durability in terms of the long-term value of the build, and it's just so much more efficient to build this way. Of course, I don't have to tell you guys that. You've all known that for a while. So here's the other one. This is the Woodside Choa house in it was a first prototype in Summerlin, and there's going to be a few more before they really launch this system built model to the US. So could you do this? I looked at some other designs that we've done recently. You could totally do it in this scenario. This is a home in Atlanta with high gloss panels on it. This is a home in Virginia. Exactly the same story. All of those things could be done off-site. I love what my friend Todd DeWalt says. And I think, I'm not sure if he quoted Jerry at Integra or Jerry quoted him. But I'm going to say, since Jerry doesn't have a podcast and Todd does, I'm going to quote Todd, where he said, "It's not a skilled labor problem. It is a process problem." Some of the process problem is not in the actual build or design. It's in the communication process. And so we just need to, everyone to know, that getting in a room together, even if it's Zoom rooms, during coronavirus, a lot of these problems can be solved with velocity by having the conversation, having the right people in the room. So again, this one pass install, it's a single system, multiple looks with one system, hidden fastener, built-in rain screen. The science is powerful, but the system is simple. So we went through that project just to give you a review. So the question is, how, when, how, and who? What are the players? Who are the players involved to make this all happen? And on MBI's website, this is one of the graphics you see, but it's an oversimplification of the challenge in front of people and the options they have. What really the options they have are this. So conventional build, panelized, hybrid, or volumetric. And so what I did is I took this graphic and I put, at what point would you be talking to someone at a building envelope, in a building envelope context, or a cladding, siding, facade context? At which point do you need to start making those conversations happen for each of these models? So very early in the process for volumetric, a hybrid solution, which is like a panelized or a hybrid install partly in the factory, partly in the field, a little later, panelized a little later in the process in terms of the design stages. And then conventional build, the one advantage they have is you can make a decision for the facade, pretty much whatever the lead time of that facade is. So you take the end date of that project and you subtract the lead time of the facade and the construction time of the installation, and that's when you can start talking to a rep about it. But for these these strategies, those conversations need to happen a little sooner, because you want to get the technical people for that manufacturer involved in the conversation. So in our case, you have a technical design review. Anything outside of the prescriptive 45-foot height for our cladding anyway, and over a certain dollar size of the job, we automatically trigger a technical design review. And every modular offsite prefab, on-site prefab, whatever the case may be, those all trigger a technical design review. Those are not those cost nothing to the customer. But what we do is we break down the plans, we look at the formatting, and we start to redline things and whatever the stage is, and make suggestions based on the time frame that's left, the budget, and the construction methodology. So our folks internally, they love doing creative things. They're creatives by nature. They're also engineers, so they're very conservative in terms of the solutions they propose. And that's to protect everybody. And so it all starts with this process, you know, of having a technical design review, so that all these people on this slide can be contacted by us, and we can figure out what exactly is needed so that we can help, you know. And I think that's what manufacturers, that's what you expect out of a good manufacturer, and people that have the kind of experience in the industry. Definitely lean on them to bring these people together in the room, because you know, frankly, the manufacturers want to be able to ship that product and have it on the building and be proud of it. And so they'll go to the efforts like we do to get these people together. So this is a quote from John McManus. I won't read it, but basically the whole point of this is not to argue about which system is best, right? Everyone seems to have an opinion on that's fine. But the main goal, no matter what, is there's too much cost, too much scope gap, too much scope creep, and friction in the channel. And who pays for it? The end user. Who pays for it? The tenants of the end user. And so, you know, things have gotten so bloated in terms of costs and timeframes that it's all this related to this cost and friction and scope gap and creep. And that's our job. I view it, I take it personally, and reducing that in the industry is super important, not just to me, but I think to folks in the industry. And so this is just one graphic I really like from JB Knowledge, I think it is, and just talking about all the parts that go into this one project. Almost every project goes over budget and late. And it's because there's so much friction, so much cost, so much gap in communication that could be mitigated, not just with construction technology, but with better communication and tools. Or it could just be this one single source of truth, single sourcing for materials, and really good planning and communication. And there's a human element in every project. You can't get away from that, but you can definitely mitigate it. I like Mark Mitchell's example. We talk a lot about supply chain. We're trying to disintermediate the supply chain because there's a lot of folks in the middle that maybe aren't particularly adding value. And so we're trying to identify who's adding value, who's not, and we partner trying to shorten that supply chain as much as possible to get as close to the end user, because we feel, and we've seen it happen, that friction can be much reduced by going about things, going to market that way. This is typically how building envelopes are built. Now, Oldcastle is a competitor in the building envelope space somewhat, but we also go on a lot of the same, go over their WRBs and so forth. But so I feel, I don't feel like I'm taking too many liberties using this graphic from Builder Magazine, but building envelopes, I mean, there are so much disaggregation with the different parts and pieces. And so the simpler the system, the simpler the supply chain, the faster things can happen in our industry. And so, yes, there's going to be channel conflict. You can't avoid it. But a rising tide lifts all ships, and people that aren't on board with that just will end up doing something else with their lives. So our focus is the people, planet, performance, product, and profit. And so we bring those things together for happy, healthy homes, happy, healthy offices, more sustainable buildings, stronger buildings, and a really high-tech but simple rainscreen cladding system. And so I try to be no pitch for this, but I think that there are real solutions in the Nichiha family, not just in the products, but in having the conversation. And even if it's not Nichiha, that goes on the building. We want to move the industry forward. And that's why, you know, people like everyone on here are talking about it so much. We got Dave Cooper, Audrey. We have a podcast, like Audrey said, Build Perspectives. None of those make us any money, but we're talking about these problems because they're important problems to talk about. So that is the presentation about the building envelope, exterior cladding, and all of that in relation to modular offsite construction.
Wow, that's so awesome, Tim. I think there's a couple of great takeaways is how versatile your product is, how much you care for the client and the end user. I think it's super amazing that as a consumer, you can go onto your website and you can have a professional expert help you with all of that. I think that's so superior. I didn't know if there was any other questions that people may have on the call that maybe want to chime in. You're more than welcome. But I have a question.
Go for it.
So I love the product because I think you have all these different diverse options, right? That you can use for like just colors and brick finish and cement finish. But can you use the same product on like container home? Can you use that same kind of setup on the exterior?
Yeah, good question. So we get that question a lot when I look at the comments of inquiries that come through the website, and I listen to the phone calls that customer service gets, and it seems to be a common question. And we're working on a solution that's in our pipeline to attack, but we haven't had we've got a lot of other things in the queue as well. Most cladding hasn't been tested on direct attachment to shipping container, ribbing, and metal products. They're just, you know, none of the big manufacturers have gone through the testing and the cost of doing that. But typically what has to happen, regardless of the product you use, is you have to put on like a hatch channel or a furring before you can put on a cladding system. And that hatch channel or furrings has to be attached per ICC, International Construction Code. So based on the gauge of the shipping container steel. So we haven't had any installs of Nichiha that have you know, that have gone on shipping containers that I know of. I'd be shocked if there weren't a bunch out there, but we haven't seen. But most of the cladding has to be installed over a furring system, not directly attached to the shipping container. Well, of course, then you have the insulation. I think Mark Willie and Arstead have a partial or somewhat of a solution for that.
Okay. I feel like it's so great, all the people that you were talking about. I do love coming from the modular side, especially with the cladding and having those disjointed areas and those mate lines to actually have this, having this as a solution. It makes it really beautiful. And I love that you're able to do that.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the opportunity to talk about it today. I get a little carried away because I'm pretty excited about it. Yes,
and I saw, Will, did you have a question, Will? I saw your face on here.
Just a few comments, and Tim, greatly appreciated, you know, wonderful presentation, and we're certainly fans of your product. We use it quite a bit. We specify it, and
thank you.
As I can think, we've got 4 to 5 projects under construction. At least 4 of them or 3 of them have your product on it. So we love it, and looks great. You know, certainly things within your presentation, you know, hit right home, and I even picked up some new lingo in there, as such as working at height. I haven't used that one yet, so I like that piece. So I'll be using that. So hope you don't mind that I'm taking that.
Not at all.
So you know, it is interesting. As the process right now, when we specify your product, is, you know, so much of the, and we've tried to simplify it, right? We've tried to simplify it to really, with systems built construction, you've got 5 parts. You've got your site part, which is your horizontal. You've got your boxes. You've got your set and stitch. Then you've got your skin and your back out and your roof, right? And that's as tight as we've been able to boil it down, right now. As we try, and certainly with the larger builders, with the larger plants out there right now, and the main ones that we hit from, that do our product, it's not really on the radar skin on these, as much as we try to get it right. In my dream, I've got 85% to 90% of the product coming out of the plant, right, and coming from there. So it's hard to get into that language. But as we move around and we're learning things every day about this, is getting it into the process, right? With the smaller folks, we know, the guys at ZipKit are very good about this and looking at it. And there are a couple other builders out there that that really consider it in there, and I think we'll be seeing it more and more. I think the one of the challenges is getting that that alignment, right, and from box to box and making up for it. So won't take much more screen time, but thanks again. It's wonderful, and a lot of things hit home here. So thank you.
Thanks for your feedback. Well, I think the biggest challenge everyone's having is kind of goes back to that quote Bill Ayler from Lake Flato Architects said at the beginning, or I quoted at the beginning, was that the building envelope and the finishes, not just exterior, but interior, there's a reason it's, doing 100% completion. I mean, at every little percent from 92 to 93 is a quantum leap, from 89 to 90, 90 to 91. The more integral those systems can be, obviously that makes a big difference. So companies like Nichiha and Nightwall and other ones, they're all these kind of disparate systems that are all trying to work together. As those become more integrated, that will make that scenario much easier. But really how other countries have addressed it is, well, just what Sekisui House has brought it. They brought it in-house. They're the developer. They do all the curb and gutter. They do all the concrete. Actually, they don't really have a concrete foundation. It's more pier and post and beam. And they're doing everything. I mean, all the tradespeople work for them. And then they do the property management at the end. Clayton Homes is another company like that. They have all the pieces, but no one's really put it in North America all together yet.
Agreed.
So I'm looking forward to hopefully being a part of that, but at least seeing that happen, in the next 10 years.
Sure. Great. Thank you.
Good point.
Do we have any other questions? I saw Yuina actually from DMD Modular is on the call. Hello, from Poland. Are you in Poland, or are you in the States?
Hello, I'm in Poland.
Oh, hello.
It's hello. It's 1 o'clock at night.
Well, thank you for joining,
yes.
Evelina. It's good to see you.
Yes. Now actually I'm on my holiday right now with my family. My family is already sleeping, and I decided to join your session. So I'm sorry for late joining, but it was very interesting.
Yeah, and are you guys doing any exterior cladding on any of your projects? Are you guys looking into that?
Actually, give me a second. I need to leave the room because I don't want to wake up anybody. So speaking about our scope of the work, normally cladding is a scope of the general contractor. So usually it's not part of our scope.
Right.
So of course, we also do some projects where we are also using cladding. It's more for smart houses for Dutch market, but this is based on metal frame and wood. So this is what we do. But speaking about other projects, normally it's made on site by general contractor.
That's great. Yeah, I kind of figured that, and I love to see what you have going on over there, because it's, you know, always exciting when we can have partners from around the world. So you've made my day today. Thank you for being here and being up at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Audrey, road trip.
Thank you.
I know, right? I would love that.
Hey, Relina, I really liked your presentations at Advancing Prefab. I'm really humbled that you joined us today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So Tim, if you wouldn't mind unsharing your...
Oh yeah, I need to stop sharing. Sorry, I was hogging it.
No, not at all. Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you, Will, for your comments. I think it's always great from an architect perspective to see how you've been integrating this. And I think the education is key. You know, I was talking to Tim about that earlier when we got on the call, is really about what can this product do? How can we help design? Because I think there is always this stigma with modular. People get a little confused with it being, they think it's manufactured or it's designed under HUD or it's, you know, a park model. We've come so long and so far from it. And it's exciting because being able to have materials on the exterior really changes the feel of any building, and to be able to use it in such a streamlined system. And again, I love your dialoguing and your demonstration about where you guys come in on each one of these buildings. And I think, you know, with Will and I have this conversation, and I've had it with many other people. It's all about the pre-planning, and the pre-planning is what will save you a considerable amount of time. And so it's great to have those dialogues. And I can't wait till I see the treehouse next time. Maybe a little exterior cladding might, you know, spice it up a little.
Well, you don't think this tree is Nichiha?
It's so awesome. So thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Can't thank you enough for being here. This particular event will actually be on modularsuresite.com. We also have a YouTube channel for all of those that want to share it at another time. Our next event is Tuesday, August 11th at 4 o'clock. We're going to have Dana Spain from Volumetric Building Company, which is BBC Volumetrics, actually speak. And it's going to be really exciting because she's kind of talking more about the investor and the integration of how we're doing lending and funding on large scale and multifamily projects. So I truly hope that you can all be here. Again, it's 4 o'clock Mountain Standard Time, 3 Pacific Time, 5 o'clock Central Time, and 6 Eastern Standard Time. In Poland, I think it's 1, maybe 12 a.m., somewhere there, but we hope that you can join us again. And thank you. So grateful, Tim, and everyone else on this call for being here. I truly appreciate it. And it's people like you that make this world go around. Also like to thank 303 Development, The Art of Construction, Urban Air Living, Mountain View Window and Doors. It's always a pleasure to do business with these individuals and these companies. They make the world go around for us. So thank you, everyone. If you want to find out more about us, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. LinkedIn is usually my greatest area that you can find me and connect with me. So again, have a great rest of your week. Looking forward to seeing you again in a couple of weeks, and enjoy the summer. Let's get out and breathe a little.
Thanks, everyone. Bye. Bye from the treehouse.
Thank you.